Are we ready?
We are ready, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Kasdan.
Good evening. Neeson Kasdan, Joni Armstrong Coffin, and Hedrick or Aperman representing Magic City. As you know, I think many of you know Neil Fairman, who's the managing principal of Magic City. One thing I would like to mention, just for the record, is that we have had discussions either directly or with staff, myself, or principals of Magic City with all of the members of the City Commission. So I want to disclose that for the record. I think that there's, nothing, you're all, I think, well versed and familiar with this item at this point in time. The only additional message that I would deliver, I was very heartened by the discussion this evening as well with respect to Allapattah and, of course, Little Haiti, which is that there's a strong desire to uplift and improve these neighborhoods. And the Magic City project is a rare opportunity to provide economic development, good jobs, opportunities for jobs and job training with priority and preference to residents of Little Haiti and the surrounding neighborhoods, and restart and revitalize the economy of that neighborhood and improve everybody's lives. And so this project is designed to do that. It is a job-generating project at its core, with office and workspace and creative space to create jobs, and will create enormous spin-off in terms of the immediate neighborhood and area. So there's really nothing more to add at this point in time. We are here to answer any questions that you may have, but we're anxious to move forward and have this adopted on first reading, and continue working with staff and with the neighbors as we've been working, making this the best project possible.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hartman.
I've been hearing this statement. I've heard it time and time again. I've heard it rebutted in many different ways, but I still continue to hear the statement, and it's an expanding statement, because I think now it's been included to say that I've been requested to have meetings with the public for you all in your project and the community. I'm trying to understand, because by no means is it I'm trying to understand what type of public outreach that you've had, because there's still people here, and I'll tell you, people aren't sworn to tell the truth when they come for public comment. I know the clerk likes to have everyone stand up and raise their hand and swear to tell the truth, but that really only applies to the applicant and responding, or the appellee and the appellant, etc. It doesn't really apply to those who are coming to give facts for public, what they deserve to be facts for public comment. And so, I've always taken what people say to me on the day as with a grain of salt, because sometimes they're not truthful. So I'm trying to really and truly understand, when we talk about public outreach, can you describe to us what the public outreach has been on this project?
Yes, Commissioner. The public outreach has been extensive, and we have had 4 community meetings. We have met with dozens of neighborhood organizations and other local organizations. There have been probably literally hundreds of meetings with neighbors and concerned leaders. We have also worked, and they have written about it to the Miami Herald, and it was recognized today in the paper as well, with a group of the concerned leaders, Father Reggie, Leone, Gypsy, Francois, and other leaders of the Haitian community who have met numerous times with us. The outreach has been extensive. I could provide you, we actually did provide you before with a list of all of the meetings, literally dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings over the last almost 2 years now. And I know you, Commissioner, are aware of it, and as well. But it does bear mentioning. The outreach has probably been as great an outreach as I have in any project that I've ever participated in.
Do you have an attendance sheet of people that were there?
We have a complete list of all. We do have attendance sheets for many of the meetings. We have a complete list of the meetings, including the 4 public meetings, which were, some people just want to go to a meeting to be able to scream and yell, and that's it. Their meetings were actually much more constructive and productive. They had sessions, invited hundreds of people, were attended by hundreds of people. City staff attended 2 of those sessions where they set up stations, basically, and booths where the project principals would go through exactly what was being proposed and answered individual questions. And it was a unique and a deeper kind of outreach, candidly, than I have ever seen. Now, if you just wanted to be able to stand up in a meeting and scream and yell and stomp your feet, well, no, that wasn't the process for it. But at the same time, in addition to all those community meetings and all the additional outreach to, and I can list you all of the organizations, but I won't take the time, they have been meeting for months as well with the concerned leaders and the constituent groups and the concerned leaders as well. So the outreach has been, as Commissioner Hartman, you asked, has been extensive and long, and over a long, long period of time.
If you had a meeting that was not as constructive, there was an opportunity for people to come and to voice their objections, to, as you put it, kind of stump around, if you will. Do you think that there's anything from that meeting that would be productive that you could all use?
Well, Commissioner, I think we've had 3 of those, maybe 4 of those, including today. We have heard from the people who are in opposition to the project, and we've heard them say candidly the same thing over and over again. We are always open to hearing constructive guidance and advice, of course, but I think we've heard from the objectors repeatedly in this forum, 4 times, before the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board as well, before the Urban Development Review Board. There have been, just in the city side, I think this is the 6th public hearing at which public input has been received.
There's a group that you described earlier called the Concerned Leaders of Little Haiti. And I believe at our last meeting, they were very respectful of a certain individual that they basically named as one of the impetus of them all coming together. That person is by the name of Marlene Bastien. As I understood it, she was the person that brought the issue to the light, if you will, that they all needed to organize. And from there, you had a collection of different people who are very well respected within the Little Haiti community, including, like individuals like Gypsy Martellus and Father Reggie, etc. So my point there is that, before you all had an opportunity to ever sit and meet with me to really discuss your idea, I've always been a proponent of going to the neighborhood first, going to the communities to see what it is that they want, what they desire, etc. moving forward. And so Marlene made a statement that she wants a seat at the table. And I'm trying to understand this concept of seat at the table, because as it appears to me, there is a seat at the table for the leadership of Little Haiti to make, to have discussions with you and come up with some sort of agreement as to what they believe was necessary in order to move this item forward and for it to be acceptable within their neighborhoods. And so I know you don't probably know what happened between Marlene Bastien and the Concerned Leaders of Little Haiti, but would you consider the role that the Concerned Leaders of Little Haiti has as, and I put my fingers up for quotation marks, right? A seat at the table?
Yes, Commissioner, very much so. And I think representing the major interests within Little Haiti, and starting with, first and foremost, Notre Dame de Haiti, which is the largest, most important institution in the community. So they have had a seat at the table. And I don't want to get too in the weeds, Commissioner, but, you know, Magic City has had, the ownership has had tremendous outreach and dialogue with the concerned leaders. Marlene was able to, was asked to be able to participate, but the structure that they came up with was a working meetings, and sometimes they would, you know, there'd be contentious issues, but where 10 or 12 people would sit at a table and go through item by item by item by item. Marlene would not meet unless it was a large public forum where she could speak. And so Magic City ownership, as well as the leaders, the concerned leaders, thought it was better to have constructive, multiple working sessions to go through the needs and interests and what would be done.
Just a little bit of the history in regard to Marlene Bastien. I met her originally.
Your name, please?
Can I address the?
Yes, your name, please.
Neil Fairman. I met her for lunch and discussed the project with her about over a year ago. Prior to meeting her, I met her counsel, Mina Jaganow, twice. Then we had a public meeting which Marlene attended, where there was about 100 people, and she came with Mr. Mapu to the meeting, and we walked around, and I showed her all the exhibits. Mina Jaganow was there taking pictures of all the exhibits, and we walked through that. I tried a couple of times to meet with her again, but her schedule wasn't available. She canceled on me a couple of times. After that, we had another meeting with Marlene, who actually was part of the concerned leaders at the time, at a church, and met for about 2 hours after that. That was the last time, actually, that I met with her. After that, the meetings were between my staff or I and the concerned leaders, but Marlene had left the group.
Why do you think it was important for you all to meet with the concerned leaders of Little Haiti?
We were looking to try and get a consensus as to what were the most important items that the community wanted. And that's why we met with them. And many of the items that the community wanted were incorporated in the agreement, the development agreement that we have today. And I feel it's been, there have been some tough negotiations, but I really feel that we've accomplished a great deal together. And besides just meeting with the concerned leaders, we've also taken a hand trying to learn about the community. We've done business management sessions, we've done educational sessions, we've done programs for the children gang alternatives so that the kids could learn computer skills. We've sponsored the soccer team and got to meet some of the people there. We've done some programs at the church. So we've been trying to meet the community and understand the community, and it's a very culturally rich community with a great heritage, and I respect the people who have come to this country, many of them in very, very difficult ways, and have made a home in Little Haiti. And the idea is for them to feel comfortable culturally, but at the same time being able to have the next generation have the ability to be at Magic City and be able to get some educational programs, be able to work there, and the whole area become a culturally rich area, and at the same time become, let this tide float all the boats.
Is there someone from Concerned Leaders of Little Haiti that be willing to take a question from me?
I think there would be.
You can approach this. You can approach a different lecture. You can approach this one over here.
Over here to the other lectern, please. Thank you so much. And just state your name again, please. I know you spoke during public comment.
Leonie Hermanton.
Gypsy Natalis.
Can you tell me a reason why you would feel that the comment will be made that there hasn't been any outreach to the Haitian community regarding this project, and there hasn't been any major public outreach when the applicant is saying that there has been this public outreach?
I really can't answer that question. I know that as far as Concerned Leaders is concerned, we've not only met with Magic City, we've also conducted multiple community meetings to discuss the project and to even talk about solutions that would be possible, through, when resources would be available. So we have met with the community. We have had forums where about 200 plus people attended, where we discussed the project. We had Jeremy, I think, from the city of Miami come in and talk about the project. So I can't answer anything for anyone who says that there were no meetings. That's something that we can't really say. But I know that as far as we're concerned, we are pretty satisfied that we have held community meetings in the heart of Little Haiti.
Ms. Metellus, can you tell me why the Concerned Leaders of Little Haiti is uniquely positioned to advocate on behalf of this community?
Well, Mr. Commissioner Hardeman, I believe that we're uniquely qualified because we represent, I think, a broad segment, a cross-sector of the community, legacy stakeholders, current residents, current business owners, church congregants, business people, cultural entrepreneurs, so on and so forth. And so I think we can state that we have a stake here. We've earned the right to speak for and with the community, and I think we've proven ourselves.
Thank you. I was concerned, and I'll address them now.
Thank you.
I was concerned really about the constant statement that there hasn't been any true opportunity for people in the community to speak about this project. And, I've witnessed people from the community come here for the third time. And, of course, you've had PZAB meetings, etc., where they've had an opportunity to also come to express how they feel about this project. I think today was the first day that there were probably actionable items that were being presented, but they were read off so quickly at the very end of a long speech that I'm not sure if I actually captured any of them. I'm not sure if my colleagues did either, because there was a long monologue that was pretty much the exact same thing that we've heard in the past, besides some different iterations that were obviously written by attorneys. And so I had a part of me wants you to kind of just put that nail in the coffin, in the sense of individuals are saying that they haven't had an opportunity to be heard. I don't think that that's true. I think that is a mistake. I think that those are intentional misdirections by the people who are saying it. I really do. But there are people that don't take time to research facts and take what people say as gospel, and then therefore they create negative really ideas about how things are moving forward. I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman that thanked Chairman Russell for as he put it, holding the line, if you will. I think it was a statement at the last commission meeting for ensuring that we're here today discussing this item versus having first reading the last time we were here. But obviously, we continued this twice before that meeting. So there were two opportunities for you all to be here. I remember very distinctively that one of your investors, who's well known throughout the world, was very upset because I think he had rented a private jet as well. He took a private flight in, and he wanted to speak. He wanted to move forward, and it didn't. That continuance was at the behest of the district commissioner. The next meeting that we had was another continuance to further discuss items, etc. That continuance was at the behest of the district commissioner. I know from my perspective, I'm going to be attacked for whatever position I end up taking ultimately. But procedurally, as things move through the agenda, I just want to ensure that that people who actually do want to give meaningful discussion, input, etc. to a project have an opportunity to meet. And I'm not quite satisfied that those who have spoken outwardly in opposition of this project really and truly want to create any meaningful input. I think I described it before. Sometimes people want to just be known as, fighters. You're not really concerned if something is passed or not, if there's a benefit to the neighborhood or not. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to be very clear that I'm not requiring you to do anything, to make any payment. There was a document that kept being referred to early on the record saying that there were more dollars that were being put into the Magic City development than the dollars that have been negotiated. They like to say by me, but really it was a community effort that negotiated those dollars. And so, can you first describe? Because one of the first times that I met with you all, I said to you all, what you have described here in your list are public benefits, and then there's a concept called a community benefit. And I don't see many community benefits, and I'm not really that interested in public benefits. And I've always taken the stand that the public benefit is something like, you may have an improved street, or you may have new trees planted, or you may have additional green space. All these are benefits to the public. But the community may not have any it may not really truly help the community. And so can you describe better for me what that difference was in the public benefits that you had versus the community benefits that the community was able to negotiate this far?
Well, I think the public benefits were partially based on the design of the project, where we decided to do a linear park through the center of the project and be able to save a lot of the specimen oak trees and other trees that were on the project. Secondly, the other public benefit, I believe, is the employment that we're going to create. We're also going to open up 2 new streets that is going to allow the public to both communicate with what we hope will be the new railway stop there to the church, and then from the Caribbean Market and the Haitian Cultural Center, we're opening 3rd Avenue, which will be able to run right through to the Little Haiti Park. So there's many other items, but that's what I'm considering to be public. The community benefits, I think.
So let me ask you a question. With the public benefits, then, you consider the cost of producing the things that you just described as part of that number that was named earlier?
No, that's in addition to the number that. Yes, the previous number had included the park, some credits for the parks, And also, the most important credit that we were receiving was for the office buildings. We were receiving 3 square feet of credit for every office square foot that we could use and wouldn't have to pay on the $11 a square foot. So we had about almost $20 million worth of offsets on the $41 million in offsets that were doing the public spaces, doing the offices, and also the some of the transport features. Was there anything else? So if you took a look at on top of it, $10 million of the $41 million was the loss of profit in doing workforce housing versus doing normal housing that was considered as part of the $41 million. This particular $31 million today is an actual bottom line $10 million more, approximately $10 million more than what the $41 million was previously because of the offsets that would have been had with the $41 million program.
On the record, you described what you had to be workforce housing that was going to be built, and I'm assuming then also some other type of housing besides that workforce housing. At what point in, say for instance, your 15-year outlook were you looking to actually build that housing? And the second question, housing in general, and then the second question is, at what point would you have been required to actually build workforce housing if you in fact decided to build workforce housing? What would be the trigger point for that?
The workforce housing would have been built in proportion to the residential housing that we would have been building, even though it may have been off-site. So it was going to be 7%. So if we built, that's for affordable housing, pardon me. We would have built 7% of affordable housing, but it would have been built at the same time as we were actually doing the first building. So if a building was 100,000 square feet, we built 7,000 square feet of affordable housing. So the last of the affordable housing would have been done when the project was being completed.
So when you say the project is being completed, how many years from today are you anticipating the project being completed that you would build affordable housing?
You know, we're saying that it could take as long as 30 years to finish this project if, you know, depending on what the economic cycles are, and, you know, if we go through a period like 2007, 2008, and you get a 5-year, 6-year hiatus 2 or 3 times during, you know, if you have 5 years that it's great and 5 years that it's not. If we had a great economy through 15 years, I think we'd be finished through 15 years, but I think it's going to take at least 5 years to start residential in that area because there's no market for that residential. So, and another probably 15 years to finish the residential, and that's without any financial hardships.
And so tell me then, when you envision developing this site, how do you envision it occurring and what type of sequence?
We see having to start the office buildings, which would encompass initially incubators, accelerators, and then those tenants would also be in the office buildings. We feel that the only way to be able to make the residential component work is to have the working office buildings drive the demand for the residential component. So I see us starting on the office buildings as quickly as we can possibly start on the motorsport.com, providing everything works out well here, is going to be kicking off their first building about the same time as we're going to be kicking off our first office building. They'll both be on 4th Avenue, and I see them taking about 2.5 to 3 years to build. As those fill up and we start the third office building, I would say that that's when we will have a little bit of a market for the residential, for the people who are working in the office buildings.
So, and what
Let me ask you a question. Incubators, that's one of the first phase, right?
Pardon me?
You incubators, that's the first phase? part of
Yes,
the
we're
first phase?
planning on having we want to bring in some educational institutions so that post university or even post other, maybe even post high school in some cases, there'll be courses for people. The model is something that we've been looking at in Paris right now, where educational institutions, and in that particular one that we've been visiting, there were 6 or 7 educational institutions who were doing sort of postgraduate. Well, even when I say postgraduate, I don't necessarily mean post-university graduate. It could be even post-high school. Having kids apply to them, and they work in this incubator. At the same time, we have commercial people in the accelerators, and there they have 30 different companies that were sponsoring the programs. Each one of them would have about 30 desks in them. They would make application from the incubator to the accelerator, and these companies would accept their applications when they saw the projects they're working on. At the same time, there's a venture capitalist component, and the venture capitalists get to see what's being produced in that, and that starts this ecosystem where we can start to. In Paris, the idea was 1,000 startups, and that's what we're aiming at. Also, we'd like to have 1,000 startups go through this facility.
Thank you.
No, I just wanted to. I'm glad that because that was the first thing that I asked when we met.
Of course.
You see that you are going through that route and you are training and giving them the first. I mean, I would say that trying to employ people from the area. You see, giving preference to the people from the area. That was. I'm glad to hear that, and also that you're going to train those that doesn't have any the expertise so they can be in the job. I have to ask this question because I've been asked by the media. You see, one of your partners was I think it's Zangrillo, right?
Robert Zangrillo.
That's right. I mean, he hasn't been charged with anything, but he was accused of doing it. But I don't want to go into it, but I just received the information that he resigned from it.
That's
Because
correct.
it was a concern and that doing business with a person that could be indicted, but the city attorney will have some objection to that, and I mean, for the record, the person is no longer with the company. It's not part of the ownership, right?
No,
They're no longer a director.
Director with the owners. Now,
but before you move further with that, I kind of want to make this, because I've heard this sort of statement before. I want to make this clear so that we're all on the same page.
yes.
He still has ownership in the company.
He does have ownership, and he does not have ownership personally. There's a company called Dragon Global, of which he owns 20% of, that owns shares in Magic City. Now,
And
he
the
also has a
Dragon-
family trust that his family owns. That is excuse me. Yeah, I think he owns 50% of Dragon Global, and his family owns about 40%. His children own about 40% of it.
Okay.
He has appointed a new director at Dragon Global. I don't know if it's a director or a managing member. That managing member that he's appointed will be the person who will be interacting with us.
Right, so he speaks on behalf of those entities.
Yes.
He speaks on behalf of the shareholders.
Right, the new person that's appointed. I just want to make that very clear.
Yes.
No, no,
And the second thing, I don't know if he's been indicted, and I don't know.
No, well,
I don't wish indictments on anyone, but I will tell you that that I'm glad the conversation is coming about. Something we have not had an opportunity to discuss, and I'm going to go further into it, but it may seem a little ironic, but there are opportunities for us to make changes to things as we move along. That's what this whole process is about. Sometimes I may have a resident that says something that is good, and we have to capture what that resident said to incorporate into how we do things. And so they're going to be. I'll wait a little bit till after you're finished, but I'm going to have some requests of you all because there were some recommendations that were made from the city. They relate to me. I was told they relate to you as well, where there are opportunities for improving the deal that we have. That doesn't necessarily, well, I'll leave it at that for now. Opportunities of improving the deal that we have before us. And so I want to ensure that we have an opportunity to kind of talk about those things briefly before we make our next decision, which I personally believe our next decision, it had a lot to do with what is perceived to be the lack of town hall meeting and some other things that I have listed, with whether or not we approve something like this on first reading today or we continue to another day, pending some of these issues to kind of work through.
I would like to hear it, and that's I was going there.
May I clarify one other thing, please? I'd like to go on the record and say that Plaza Equity Partners is the managing partner for Magic City, MCD, and we handle the day-to-day affairs of this business. Mr. Zangrella was never involved in the day-to-day operation of Magic City, and Magic City had no knowledge of his personal matters or his daughter's university application.
Understood.
And I need to clarify the record. I did actually speak. I wanted to have there was an incident with some children and a gun wielding person in District 2 over the bridge, where the guy was arrested on one thing. I did wish them to have additional charges because I thought what he did was egregious. So I want to take that back. I have wished.
You have looked pretty nice.
Some people I did.
Now, I would like to hear from the following on what Commissioner Harden said. That there are some suggestions from the administration, and Mr. Garcia, could you please let us know what those suggestions are?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to do so. First, I'll mention briefly that I would be remiss not to point out the many positive aspects of this proposal and certainly the transformative potential that it has. It has to be said, and I also want to, for the record, because we in the planning department have directly been involved in many of these public outreach opportunities and consensus building opportunities. There have been many. They have been robust. Much feedback has been obtained and input has been obtained from the community, and much of it has been folded into the project that we see today. As part of the process, and I'm going to go now very specifically to planning concerns. As part of the process, we have the responsibility to evaluate the proposal on a variety of issues, but two that I want to highlight and that remain, in our opinion, to be resolved definitively are these. One, probably the easier one of the two to address, is this. The proposal before you today calls itself, and I think appropriately, the Magic City Innovation District. And what I would like to put to you for your consideration is that an essential part, a critical, pivotal part of an innovation district has to do with the educational component. At present, and so affiliation, and in case after case after case of successful innovation districts throughout the country, an indispensable component of their success has to do with a proper partnership with a stable, reputable educational association. At present, and I think this can be improved upon, the development agreement has the following language inserted in it. It says, as pertains to partnerships with educational institutions, it says, the developer agrees that it shall use good faith efforts to partner with or otherwise seek the involvement of an accredited public or private post-secondary educational institution for purposes of input and or programming in the development of the special area plan. Frankly, I suggest to you, and I submit to you respectfully, we can improve upon that. A more solid and sound relationship is sought as pertains to this particular aspect. And so that is a comparatively easy aspect to address. And then I'd like to focus for a moment on the issue of affordability, in particular as pertains to housing in the area. I don't need to belabor the point that Little Haiti is facing an affordability crisis in terms of housing. And so from the planning perspective, what we were asked to do originally in the development agreement was to evaluate their proposal and to try to achieve an arrangement that would yield a predictable and verifiable source of affordable housing, affordable and workforce, but affordability, income-restricted housing for the district. And I'll highlight for a second what we had obtained and what we were comfortable with recommending to you for consideration, and I'll just do the highlights for reference purposes. And I certainly encourage you to correct me if I should be wrong. The requirement is that in the previous version of the development agreement was that 7% of the residential program for the development be affordable, and that 14% of the residential program be workforce. And admittedly, this could take place on-site or off-site. However, there was a radius established of approximately 1,500 feet from the subject site. That may not have been adequate. That's certainly negotiable. We may want to expand that further, but that's what we had right then and there, which is 7% and 14%. 7% affordable, 14% workforce. Now, I'm going to base the next projection on what the applicant submitted as their concept book program calculations, and which is basically
before we go there, the 7% and the 14%, would that be triggered at a certain floor of development, or like what was the trigger to make the 7% and the 14% become something that should be realizable?
Understood. So the requirement or the paragraph in the development agreement states that at any point in time throughout the development process, 7% or 14%, 7% affordable, 14% workforce of the space for residential program on site had to be addressed in this fashion. So as they are building units, residential units, we would keep a running count throughout the project of 7% workforce, 14% affordable, which was a great encouragement, we felt, for the applicant to actively seek opportunities to achieve the development of both workforce and affordable housing in the near vicinity so as to run ahead of, not behind, that percentage of the count. Right? So this is an as-you-go requirement.
So you essentially are saying that you thought that what they would do is to seek other, because I know that there are affordable housing developments that are within the area that needed additional funding. You're saying that basically you saw them investing into those projects, providing sort of a gap funding, and those units would count towards the units that they would have been required for the 7% and the 14%.
Correct. This would be generation of new net workforce and or affordable housing units.
So would you have considered if there were, say for instance, a $2 million shortage in a project that is within the Little Haiti area, within those meters boundaries that you described earlier, and they provided $2 million towards that development to be built, would you have considered those 80 units in that development a contribution towards what they had to deliver as far as the 7% and the 14%?
If they were net new units and they came about directly as a result of their investment and they could represent verifiably that that was the case, and that would have satisfied that requirement, yes. Okay. Right. And so I'll make a couple of additional statements and we can discuss further. And so our estimation is that that would have yielded, over the life of the project, a total of about 600 units of income-restricted units, right? And then please,
Excuse me, that would be over 25 years period or something like that? 20?
the life of the project. And again, the important part of this for us is that this is verifiable, that we have leverage to ensure this happens, and that ability to proceed ahead with the project, with the development, is contingent upon satisfaction of this criterion as one goes forward, which is the position we are in as a regulatory agency, is to ensure that this happens, right? And you certainly take us to task frequently as pertains to that. And so, based on this rough calculation, again, based on the proposed concept book program calculations, which is their proffered likely development scenario, not highest and best, not lowest and least, but their proposed development scenario, that gets us to approximately 600 total income restricted units. Rough numbers for reference purposes.
But not all necessarily built. That are not necessarily built on the site.
No, in fact, none of them had to be built on site.
Right. So in fact, Magic City did not have a requirement to build any affordable housing on its site.
That is correct. That is correct. The requirement set forth was that it would be within 1,500 feet in the perimeter of the subject site, which is a significant amount of land, but perhaps not as much as it should have been. It's fairly restrictive. So very close vicinity to the site.
Mr. Garcia,
Sir.
am I remembering incorrectly that I had thought that the workforce was mandated on site, but the affordable was off site? Am I incorrect there?
Not mandated, optional still.
It was optional even for the workforce.
Yes, sir.
I'd originally understood that the workforce had to be on site.
Representations were made throughout that the provision of workforce housing on site was more feasible, and there would certainly be opportunities to do that, and I think that was an aspiration that they had. But in terms of strict compliance language, that was not a requirement. And I just wanted to be clear about that.
And can I clarify that we did not have to build any of it? We could have paid for it rather than built it.
That is true as well.
Okay, and I want to explain what he just said. What does he mean by that?
That means that we would have considered satisfaction of this requirement a verifiable demonstration that their activities had produced this additional housing. So there wasn't housing before at those levels available at those levels in the area, and their direct intervention, they would represent to us that housing had been provided, and that would then have to comply with that requirement. Now, it was understood and certainly encouraged that they would partner with other agencies, entities, etc., to be able to achieve that housing. And frankly, ultimately our interest, our proper interest as a regulatory agency, is to ensure that there is a provision of net new residences at these affordable rates.
Is that how you understood it? You want to put it in your own words, Mr. Furman?
Pardon me?
Is that how you understood it, or do you want to put it in your own words? You made a statement that we could have paid.
Yes, we had a choice that we could, instead of building the affordable housing, we were getting credits for the affordable housing against the bonus zoning. That's the way it was working. So we could have just paid the amount rather than actually built the units. And in fact, I believe that with all the credits, we would have been somewhere in the $12–13 million cost.
Where would you have paid the money to?
The money would go to the city.
Oh,
to the Housing Trust Fund.
The City of Miami Housing Trust Fund.
Yes.
For the benefit of the entire city.
Well, no. In actual fact, we early on we had asked if it could be put. Having communicated with your office earlier on, we asked if it could be kept in Little Haiti, and you said you were hoping that you preferred that it would be able to be left there.
Yeah, I'm trying to fight for it. I do that sometimes.
The next step I would take is that we have internally, and again, these numbers are rough estimates, but I think they're reasonable, and if not, you'll certainly correct me. So, if it is true, and it is certainly true the way we understand it, that this requirement would have yielded ultimately, upon completion of the project at the end of the day, 600 total income restricted units. We assign a value to those units at the rate of about $200,000 per door, all included. That would have been $120 million. Now, admittedly, the expected cost to be covered by the developer would have been the amount of it that would have contributed towards getting Light Tech credits and encouraging or subsidizing that development. But even at that rate, at the 1/5 rate that one typically calculates these for, their contribution would have been approximately $36 million. Now, the only reason I'm going through these calculations is simply in our effort to establish some point of comparison between what then took place, which was a presentation, to us an alternative method could be proposed for compliance with these requirements in terms of the public benefits yielded by the project. And again, I focus on affordable housing because that's the issue at hand now.
There's one very important factor that's not being mentioned here. When we build affordable housing, we could use approximately 15% equity, and the balance of it would come from different county and city and possibly land donations for it, where we would probably, maybe there's 15 or 20% of equity invested in this, and we would own the property after. In this particular case, we're giving $31 million, and we're not going to own anything, and besides that, the numbers that you're quoting don't take into consideration the finance, which we wouldn't have to lay out. They don't take into consideration the subsidies that we would be getting, and they don't take into consideration the tax credits, the federal tax credits that we would get also. So when you input the affordable housing, the cost to us in the long run would have been very little in comparison to the $31 million we're giving today.
And that's a fair point, Mr. Fairman, and these are all approximations, and I stipulated that in advance, and I both said that these were rough numbers, and I also factored in what, in an effort to take that into consideration, the 1/5 reference I made was precisely a reference to that. That said, if I may, I need to complete the thought. I need to complete the thought for coherence purposes, right? Because otherwise none of what I say will make sense.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, no trouble at all, and I'll be brief about it. Bear in mind that ultimately to us, how the goal is obtained is frankly none of the essence. We had, at one point in time, a verifiable, enforceable means to obtain, in our view, those 600 cost-restricted units, which is really the goal here. And so if you allow me for just one more second, in lieu of that, what we are not considering, and I grant you that this is in part comparing apples to oranges, but I'm doing the best I can. We're doing the best we can. So in lieu of that, there is now a proposal on the table that provides $31 million. These $31 million go not exclusively necessarily toward the provision of income-restricted housing, affordable workforce. There are other purposes attached to it. In addition to that, there is a fair degree of assurance that 6 million of those, in fact, I think almost certainty, that those 6 million of those $31 million would be provided upfront, essentially. However, the remainder are to be collected at the rate of $4.03 per square foot over the life of the project. There are no provisions, and again, these are things that I put on the record for your consideration. There are no provisions at present, this is a concern, that there is any adjustment of that contribution over time. It remains fixed over the life of the project, however long that life may be. And it is also the case that there is no longer a verifiable assurance that the net result will be those potential 600 units based on the percentage of however much residential program they provide. Instead, it simply has to do with the market fluctuations, and how much of the project is developed versus not developed, right? So that's a concern to us. The last part of the narrative that I will provide is simply an effort on our end to make this $31 million proposal at least make more sense to us, or yield a more verifiable effect. And that would be to do two things. One, to certainly put in place some sort of an adjustment process for those contributions over time, so that it's real money that has real significance whenever that money is placed into the trust. And the other suggestion we have made, and certainly the applicants have received the benefit of the suggestion, as I believe all of you have, is that the $31 million contribution beyond the $6 million, that the remainder of it be front-loaded as opposed to spread out throughout the life of the project. The advantage of that, and the way that will be done, by the way, is to tally those contributions instead of at the rate of $4.03 per square foot, tag that to the $10.81 per square foot that happens to be the rate specified in our city code and zoning ordinance for public benefits contributions within the Little Haiti area, generally speaking. Right, so that's already a number that is published and made reference to in projects as well. The advantage of that then is that the first third of the project, should that be built, and one would certainly expect that the first third of the project be built in terms of development capacity, would have yielded the totality of those $31 million, which can then be put to good use towards the provision, and this time it would be the city through other agencies and partnerships, of cost-restricted housing. So that is basically the calculus we have made. That is simply a proposal to try to get ourselves comfortable in the planning department, regulatorily speaking, with a safe, predictable, verifiable method to, in the end, produce that very much needed affordable housing.
In other words, what you're trying to say is that we would want to try, given your formula, to accelerate the $31 million that we're going to receive. And it makes a lot of sense because if it takes 20 years to receive $31 million, say the future value of the present value of the $31 million, it will be substantially reduced. And instead of charging, and when the first, when they start the project, in the first phase of the project, the rate of $4, you want to charge the rate of $10, which is the usual rate that we charge. And then once the $31 million are received, then that we can use that money. We can use it more efficiently because we will receive it in a shorter period of time. You see, that's your proposal.
That's correct, sir. And I'll add one more thing that I glossed over, but I think it's worth remembering.
Makes sense.
And it is this, sir. It is that through this new development agreement, the full development capacity that otherwise would be staggered over time is actualized up front. The moment the entitlement is approved, they enjoy the benefit. The land itself enjoys the benefit of that full development capacity. That is also worth considering, and that is valued today, not over the time of the project.
It makes sense.
I understand that. It absolutely makes sense, and if I was looking at this from the outside, I'd think the same thing. But in the interest of fairness, I have to disclose. When we were talking about this paying the bonus, we were starting on the 12th floor, not on the first floor. And the reason that we went to $4.03 was because Mr. Hardiman's office negotiated that we start paying the $4.03 on the first floor. I will very gladly go back to paying the $12 starting on the 12th floor.
That's
So
the part
like
that
everybody else does.
That's the part that I was trying to draw out of our staff because I wasn't hearing it, and I began to confuse myself because I remember that the bonus dollars that were being paid for the additional units were always triggered at a certain height, and if you chose not to go beyond that height, then you didn't have to make those.
I didn't choose
Is that
it.
correct?
Actually, your office negotiated. I'd rather go back to the bonus height than start on the ground floor. And if you want me to pay the $11, I'll start at the bonus height. This is my second point, just so that you understand. On the CPI or whatever you want to call it as an inflation, the offset for that was the $6 million upfront payment. And this came up during the negotiations. And I don't think that it's fair that when we make concessions in the negotiation on paying the $6 million up front rather than having the CPI, that afterwards that it's renegotiated again. We're really at the breaking point of where we can go. I have the authority to make this deal today, but I do not have the authority to go beyond this.
Do you have the authority to accelerate it to $31 million, but we find a way on which we can receive the $31 million and not in 25 years, because according to you, it will take up to 25 years for the city of Miami to reach that amount. I mean, I mean, it's going to be piecemeal, but understand what I'm trying to say. We want that contribution, because it's a contribution. We're not charging you anything. That contribution to be as effective as we can for the city of Miami and for Little Haiti, that we can invest it in a way that we can see the results, you see, before 25 years. I mean, that is because otherwise, you know, well, okay, we get the apartments and the apartments are going to be there. But what we're going to do is we want now to start. You see, as soon as we receive the funds are going to be used for affordable housing, and we can start seeing the results of the contribution.
And, you know, I would like to see us be able to pay it in 7 or 8 years. The problem is that we need to make money to pay money.
Yeah, but
Let me look. Can I just finish?
Sure, of
my
course,
answer,
of
please?
course. I love this.
You know, we are not going to delay our construction in order to save $4.03 per square foot. We want to go as quickly as we can go. But I'm in an area where the risk curve in this deal, being in Little Haiti, trying to develop what we're developing, is as high a risk curve as any project that I've ever undertaken in my life or I've seen in the city of Miami, to be honest with you. So what I'm saying is, we want to pay it as quickly as we can build it. If we're successful, it'll be 10 years, but it's not under our control, the market conditions. If we're in a position where there's crime and there's problems and people don't want to go there, I won't be able to have the market to be able to do it. If, for instance, the accelerator takes off and the office buildings are built and people, God bless us all. I'm happier to do it quicker than, listen, I'm 69 years old. I'm not looking for I'm looking to do it as quickly as I can. So
You're very young, you're just starting out.
I'm older
So
than
you're
you.
very young, you're just starting out.
You're starting now, man. Wait until you get to be my age.
So I don't have to talk, we'd like to see this go as quickly as we can, but we can only pay for it as we build it, because we don't have the upfront funds, and we can't be subsidizing. We're ready to put the $6 million on upfront.
Can at least that's probably we can get into an agreement that there's going to be percentage of that money that are going to be paid in a certain amount of time. You see, because I mean, getting a piecemeal like that, I think it loses the effectiveness.
I understand, but you know, as we build it, we can pay for it. I don't think that we'd like to go as quickly as we can, and I don't think we're harming the community by going at the pace of the market. We can only do what the market will allow us to do. We're taking great risk here, and respectfully, I'm really at where I can go. I don't have the mandate. I've gotten this agreement passed by my board.
It's your business, man. And business take risk. Everything in life is risk, man.
Pardon me?
Everything in life is risky. You see?
And
if it goes well, you're going to make a bundle. You know that.
We had an original, we originally were proffering $28 million. I went back to my board to get the extra $3 million. They told me not to come back.
I'm not talking about more money. I'm talking about less time.
But Commissioner Reyes, may I also add, the $6 million being paid up front is being paid regardless of whether he builds 1 square inch, 1 square foot of building.
I don't understand that.
This $6 million is being paid upon approval of this SAP, and providing there's no appeal taken. Within 90 days, there's a payment of $3 million, and with 180 days after that, there's another payment of $3 million. That's $6 million, whether he builds anything or nothing at all. So and there's no project, no SAP, no project in Miami, which has had to pay $6 million up front. He's doing more than any other project has been asked to do by paying that money up
Even
front.
Brickell City Center with all that money.
Even Brickell.
You kidding me?
Yeah. This payment up front is, I would ask planning staff if they can tell me any other project that's required to pay $6 million up front without building anything.
Well, I don't know if anybody's been required.
This is
no one's been
voluntary,
right.
correct?
No one's been required to pay anything. So let's clarify that for the record. I want to make this very clear since.
We are not requiring anything.
Right. So yeah.
Voluntary.
Well, it's going to be we're talking about what would be is in the development agreement.
Right. So listen to me here. You have the option of, well, first, you have the right when you amass a certain amount of land to ask for an SAP. You can choose to ask for the SAP without any negotiations for public benefits if you choose. You can also choose to ask for the SAP including public benefits like you're doing right now. You having public benefits or community benefit agreements, and you not having them, I can't tell you whether one works and the other one doesn't, because each SAP application is different. In this case, you've decided that you want to make contributions towards a community benefits agreement that should have positive effects on surrounding areas, not particularly on your site, but in the surrounding area and for the community. Now, there was a statement that was made earlier on the record, which I wholeheartedly believe, and it was that Magic City won't solve all the issues in Little Haiti. I believe that it's going to take a mix of partners and law in order to kind of help us improve the living conditions in Little Haiti, because that's part of what we're troubled with. We're troubled with poor living conditions. Commissioner Reyes described some homeowners on the record about them living. They had rats and all kinds of issues when he was knocking on doors over the 7 times that he's run for public office here. I know what that means. Certain individuals within the city of Miami know the difference. They know when the season is for cockroaches and for rats. They don't necessarily come out at the same time. They know the season for termites, and they know the season for a number of different ills that they have to contend with in their homes. But traditionally, in the city of Miami, those individuals haven't gotten any relief. Those who are renters in our neighborhoods have. Those who are homeless in our neighborhood have. Those who want handouts in our neighborhood have. Those who want sporting facilities in our neighborhoods have. And so part of the discussion when we talk about that $100 million in affordable housing, and the way I think about this money, is how you give relief to individuals who never had a true opportunity to have any sort of relief in the past. What I would hate to see, as I said earlier on the days, is to continue to build at a rate, especially that is much greater than home ownership, to continue to build rental units that people will never have an opportunity to own, that will never cause them to raise their area median income, to pull themselves out of poverty, because they never have an opportunity to have home ownership. In Little Haiti, we do have home ownership, and some of it we do not. But another thing that we talked about at one of our last meetings was just the zoning in that area, and how you have a lot of multi-family homes in that area, and they're not in relatively good shape. Part of it is because even if it is someone who is not owner occupied, someone who owns a property that's a duplex property, that the rents are not as high as they would need to actually get a loan to renovate their property. Who then, if they did take the loan to renovate the property, they would have to raise their rates so high that they can't find tenants to move into that space, because no one wants to live in a space where you have this sort of conditions and you have to pay that high of the rent. So Little Haiti is really stuck at a space that is almost like purgatory, because I would not expect I wouldn't expect any of you to move into even a renovated space in Little Haiti if next door to you you're dealing with slum. No one's going to pay that rent. And I think that's what, when we talk about the market, part of the problem with the market. But we, I believe, as a commission, have an opportunity to to play a role in that market. And by that I mean, and I always stress this, when people will tell you the more density you have, the more affordability you have. And I think that's only a function of the availability of property. So for instance, you may have, in New York City, you may have a unit that's 400 square feet, and the price, if you want to rent that space, is $2,500 for that one unit. It's because they don't have as many units as that size, etc., in the density in New York. So what I'm saying here is that I think increasing the density in places like this can create some affordability in those areas, but more importantly, because I think the areas are already affordable, they're not standard living conditions. What I want to be able to see for the Little Haiti area is a standardization of the housing product. So now, if someone's living in poor conditions and they're renting this space, that space can be renovated or can be taken from a two unit complex to a 4-unit complex, because now those additional 2 units will help the property owner make improvements into his space and make it more affordable for him to actually make those renovations, and then can still rent it out at a decent price, where people who are from the area, who lived in the area, who want to move in the area, can say, okay, now there are 12 houses on the block that are being renovated, because now the market is better to allow for us to truly make a profit and take the slum out of Little Haiti. And so I think that's part of what we're going to have to do here, in conjunction with trying to find additional funds in order to help make improvements into those spaces. I'll tell you, a CPI sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The $10.81 per square foot for the contributions, it still sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The only groups that I've seen that have signed deals that said that, we agree on these terms, have been, well, I'll put it this way: the City of Miami Commission, nor have I signed any deal that said that what is presented is the best thing for us, and this is what we must go forward with. And so, even the Robert Zangudo situation, I think is super appropriate to have a Robert Zangudo scholarship fund for those who are residents in Little Haiti. I think that it's super appropriate for us to name some institutions within the greater Miami area that can participate with you, as was described on the record, educational institutions. One educational institution that never really gets an opportunity to participate in much of anything is Florida Memorial University. It is a private, historically black college university right here in South Florida. birthplace of the lift every voice and sing. I'm sure you've heard that before. So, because I know that FIU is going to get love, they always do. I know that Miami-Dade College is going to get love, they always do. I know that the University of Miami, to some extent, will get some sort of love. I'm okay. Will get some love because these are the players that we're used to engaging with. But in order for us to really encourage the sort of transition back into these neighborhoods that we wish to, I think we have to reach out to universities such as Florida Memorial University, that have a population that reflects that neighborhood. And so, you know, like I said at first, I mean, some of these things I really wanted to consider before actually hearing something on first reading. I mean, voting on it on first reading. But I think the record has been supplemented quite a bit with the amount of outreach that has been done, recommendations from our city staff as to how you were considering moving this project forward in the first place. Because what I find to be quite interesting about the way that the deal was set up before this whole $31 million discussion came about is that if things went perfectly, you would get at least 600 units, well, about 600 units that could be built elsewhere. But if it didn't go perfectly, you may not get 600. You may not get 5, you may not get 4, you may not get 3, you may not get 2. I mean, these things, it could not happen. And yet still, there still wouldn't be any other investment that you would make necessarily in the Little Haiti neighborhood, because the money would be going, if you did pay any bonus, it would be going to the Housing Trust Fund. And so, you know, from the very beginning, I said that I believe anytime you have an SAP grant and you provide as many benefits as you have for an organization, that there is an instant appreciation in their property. I really do believe that. And from that, the first number that I ever stated to you all was $100 million. I think you remember that, right? Why'd you tell me no? You can't give us $100 million voluntarily? I mean, I remember that number, right? I want a real response from you all. I asked you for $100 million.
Yes,
What was your reply?
it's not possible.
And why is that
It's
not possible?
unfeasible, economically unfeasible.
So, I completely understand that this is one of those things where it's like you have to be able to make money to continue to build and do what it is that you want to do, and make voluntary contributions to a fund that's meant to help other people, not you. But part of our responsibility is also just to continue to tweak these things to make it better for the neighborhood, better for those who are going to be entrusted with ensuring that Little Haiti has some future in the city of Miami. And so that's why the trust is very important, because they start to really think about these things. They start to think about what type of zoning do we need in Little Haiti? What are real needs in those communities? How is it that you take whatever investment that's in there and create more affordable housing? Home ownership, affordable housing. I mean, look, I'm sure you're going to have a beautiful space, but I'd rather own my home than rent from you any day, right? I can come spend whatever $10, $12 that I have to come visit your shows, or $100, whatever it may cost me to visit a certain show, and go back home to my home that I own, then rent with you. I don't know why people seem to believe that poor people want to live amongst people with a bunch of means anyway. It doesn't always exist that way, but I digress. My point to you is that I think there's some things that you should consider. I think
Chair, Commissioner Harmon, I do apologize. I truly apologize. I need about a 3-minute recess, just so that the clock can strike midnight, and then we can start back up again. Thank you. So just a 3-minute recess. We'll just meditate for a moment.
It's like what do they call that thing? when something's happened.
Impact
Yes.
or degree. And the facts that they have presented on that are that they are one of dozens of organizations that are active in Little Haiti, not differentiating from any other organization. In fact,
I'm sorry to
they,
interrupt.
no, excuse me. In fact, they are not even registered with the Net Office in Little Haiti, which is the office for all neighborhood organizations to be registered with. Number two, the person who they have offered as an individual lives at least 1/3 of a mile away from the site. They, in their statement, and understand this, they have filed on March 7th, or dated March 7th, with the city. You all received it. May I finish, Mr. Chair?
Well, you're actually making the case on the substance of the intervener's status.
No, but
I just want to make sure that we want to go down that road.
Well, because it's before...
And by you participating, you will also be making your case for intervener status.
Trying not to participate. That's my point,
Mr. Chair, it's before you. They filed a motion for intervention with a statement of facts.
Chair, I'm sorry.
That's before you. So their whole case, the fact that
think we were just at,
So where should we start? Should we start with the Bob Zangrillo Scholarship Fund, the CPI,
for the
or
Florida
the
Memorial
$10.81?
University Bob Zangrillo Scholarship Fund. I like the sound of that. It's going to go viral.
No, I think, look, in 7 years, no one's going to remember what happened there. They're going to remember that Bob Zangrillo made a scholarship fund for those individuals. I'm telling you what's going to happen. That's how the world works. But so this is where I am, because I understand how you all feel about things. You're not happy. You're not happy. I don't like passing things on first reading because I think it weakens my position. But I will tell you, I know that this deal has benefits that really exceed any other deal that has come before. But that does not mean that the deal can't be better. I understand that there are times in which organizations say, look, okay, we can't do that. We can't do any more, right? And, that's okay. I've been very plain about certain things in the past. And, and this thing is very interesting because I think people try to take, for instance, I heard someone say, or read something that said that Keon Hardeman, that's what it says, Keon Hardeman is the elected official who is the proponent of this project. I disagree. I'm here to hear the presentation that you all have to make. Part of my responsibility as a district commissioner is to ensure that we work the best deal that's possible if there is going to be a deal on the table for the residents in the city of Miami. But I'll tell you, a project of this magnitude has a regional effect for the city of Miami. And by that I mean you intend on attracting people from everywhere into the space for entertainment. I know it to be true because we've seen the sort of entertainment that some of your partners have created in the Cirque, for instance, that I've driven from my home in Miami to Orlando to visit. Or I've traveled to Las Vegas and experienced. So, we know that people come from lots of places to experience that sort of entertainment. And I think that could be a wonderful thing. But there's certainly a major trade-off. This is a complicated set of facts when it comes to how we can go about making this something that's tolerable to the residents and also to you if this were to pass. And I try to explain to people kind of get lost on these facts. They spend a lot of time attacking me as if I have the only vote on this matter. I don't. We've been outvoted in our district on projects that I believe matter to us in other communities before. And it is a fact of reality that sometimes what the commissioners feel is appropriate is not what the district feels is appropriate. And so we don't know what the district feels is appropriate yet because I don't believe we've come to that point where we've said, well, we should, we're not there yet in the sense of where I can say, you know what, this is what it is. But I will tell you that I like some of the things that I like the things that I heard from staff. I certainly would like to. I would like for you to have one of those sounding meetings. I'll call it a sounding meeting which is basically what we have here. That maybe in order to have some control and some decorum, that Father Reggie could actually host that at Notre Dame de Haiti, where him or his delegate could give an evening to hearing what I know potentially are the same things that we've heard here, but essentially to give real thought into what it is that people have to say to you. Because at the end of the day, this is his community as well. This is Leones and Gypsies. This is all of their communities. And so we want to make sure that no one is shut out from the project, even if they're doing things to shut the door on themselves. And so I like the idea of having another meeting. I like the idea of having a Bob Sanglitto Scholarship Fund. I like the idea of including in historically black colleges and universities, particularly Florida Memorial University. I like the idea of a CPI. I like the idea of $10.81 square foot for the contribution. And even the 10 to 81, no one's asking you, besides the Sanglitto Scholarship Fund, to make any contribution that is more than what you've committed. It's merely an additional $6 or so beyond the contribution that you're making. So if it's going to cost you, I don't know what the numbers are, but say it costs you $250 per square foot to develop what you intend on developing, and I'm sure there'll be a different number for different phases, an additional $6 from that. I know you're going to tell me you can't do it, but I really want you to consider strongly to do it. And there were some other things that were of concerns to individuals, the 5 a.m. liquor licenses that exist by right, et cetera. I mean, there were a number of things that were kind of put on the record. And I really want you to give some serious thought into making those a part of your application to us. Is that something that you can do?
Commissioner, let me answer, and let me first put it in a little bit of context as well. Most of the property there is currently zoned D1. Under the D1 zoning, be allowed to build 10 stories, 154 feet, as a matter of right, without having to pay or contribute anything to the community whatsoever. With respect to the underlying zoning, from the very first conversation we had with Francisco a year and a half or so ago, he said that given the fact that this is no longer a viable, really, industrial area, the natural next zoning category you would go to would be T68, which gets you to 8 stories, 12 stories with bonus, which would be, in other words, be able to be built in essence as a matter of right. We have come up with in the application with a special area plan that does provide for some additional height and some additional FLR. We had been proceeding on the track that would be accounted for in a certain fashion in order to attain the bonus height and bonus FLR, and that we would receive significant credits, as was mentioned before, for the public space and other contributions as well. With respect to the affordable and workforce housing, none of it was ever required to be built on site, and it was only going to be provided if and to the extent that housing was built. And so there was actually not even, in that fashion, not a guarantee that anything of that sort would be built. Your office decided that the direction should perhaps be changed, and we look at a broader concept of community benefits rather than public benefit, which includes affordable housing, potentially, and includes other benefits to the community as well. And one of the things which you and others have voiced as well this evening is creating a fund that may be able to be used to induce home ownership and things of that sort. That and after discussion and negotiation, the decision was made that those dollars would be paid not based on achieving bonus height or bonus FLR, but for every square foot built, there would be $4 and change paid. In addition, even if nothing was built, the first $6 million would be paid within months of approval of the SAP, with the developer still to take all risk, all market risk. And remember, as I think we all know, we're dealing in an area that does not have established market in office, established market in hotel, established market in residential. Therefore, none of those uses are, by any standard, by any measure today, really viable uses for development. So they're undertaking a huge risk. The partnership has agreed to do what's on the table before you this evening. They have not agreed to do any more.
They're not going to create the Bobs and Girls Scholarship Fund?
And, you know, and in addition, this is really a critical, candidly, turning point in terms of this project. And I'm not saying this to be, to overstate this, but you have a significant group of investors with an incredible record of accomplishment and a great opportunity to deliver something of tremendous economic and community value to the Little Haiti neighborhood. One thing that they need is a signal of confidence from the city itself, that the city says, yes, we do believe this will be a great project and can be a great project, and we want to go forward and we want to work with you. So that is something that is critical for them to receive. There is, as I think Mr. Fairman has already mentioned to you, the first occupant that's been lined up, motorsports.com, and I'm authorized to tell you that their decision, and that is to employ upwards of some 300 people, I think, permanently, their decision to go forward or not on their aspect of the project is literally dependent on this project moving forward this evening. So it's been a difficult process. The work has been laborious. I think what you want to do with the fund that's been created in terms of focusing those efforts on housing or focusing those efforts on other things is for the city to determine, and we would be supportive of the direction that you and the community think it is best to go in. But at this point in time, they are clients, and I think for the benefit of this city, I don't want this to turn into, this is kind of a little bit like an Amazon, except there's no public dollars and no public land. And the investors, who are the world-class caliber investors, need to be shown the confidence that this city has to go forward this evening.
Mr. Kasdan, I'd like to help a little. I've been very quiet and listening, and I like to observe. I think you are seeing a signal, and I think the signal from the district commissioner is that he's looking for an open mind, and if you are to make a hard decision tonight, you'll be making that decision, and it may lead to another deferral if I'm reading between the lines, and I may be incorrect. But if you have an open mind, which is not a commitment, but an open mind to discuss, you may get past first reading, and I may be reading in between the lines incorrectly there as well. But that is further than this project has gotten to date, which is a pretty big hurdle, which means continued discussion. There's no commitment from either side, but the conversation continues, and you're much further than you were yesterday. That's just my recommendation, but I can understand where you are from your position and how this feels in this moment. because you have invested a lot, the partners have invested a lot, and I understand the frustration. But as I've just been listening to my fellow commissioners here, that's my read on the moment, and I'll just leave it at that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think your characterization is actually very good and accurate of where we are, where we are at this moment. You know our position, which is, and in terms of what, if anything more, Mr. Fairman has been clear in our position. I understand the position from that's been expressed this evening from the city as well. Obviously, and I'm going to go out on a limb to say this, obviously discussion is always constructive. But the expectations of people have to be realistic as well and set appropriately. A deferral this evening would be, quite simply, I think, the end of this project. And so that's, I think you've characterized it well and where it's at.
There has to be some rationale to why we're in the position we're in. And if this doesn't work out, I want to apologize to everybody who's helped us here and worked with us and supported us, and we're making every effort we can to make this happen. But when it comes to a point where we can buy adjacent land a lot less expensive than the $31 million that we'll have to spend here, a consideration has to be made to the alternative to giving the community the $31 million and investing in properties that surrounds the property. And we have done the analysis, and we know that we would benefit as much or greater by investing the $31 million in adjacent properties. We may not be 20 stories, we'll be 10, but we will also own the dirt, not just the air. And I had to make a presentation to our board and had to justify the $31 million. And I'm always open to talk, but I want it to be realistic, because there's no sense in coming back in 3 months after this goes to Tallahassee and being in the same position and expecting something that's way beyond where we can go. So we'd like a vote of moving forward, but I want the expectations to be real, because I'm not trying to be bold and threaten anybody or whatever. It's just economic sense that we go out and buy more property rather than keep raising the amount that we have to contribute. This is not just a property deal. This is us bringing in something to Miami that it doesn't have. A tech hub, an innovation center. We've hurt the project a bit and delayed the project a bit. We've lost a couple of tenants that we thought we'd have. If motorsport.com is going to leave us, it really puts us right back at the beginning again and hurts the project greatly. I'm asking you to please vote for the project. I'm willing to sit down and talk, but I want the expectations to be realistic, because we don't have a lot of room. Thank you very much.
Sir, excuse me. You said about economic expectations, and I mean, we're talking about economics now. I think that what the administration requested is not that bad. I mean, because the only thing that we are asking is to accelerate. You know about economics, you know about the bang for the buck. If we get that money piecemeal in 25 years, you see, you know, the value of the $31 million is not going to be the same. And we won't be able to do with it as much as we will like to do. be better off then to allow that, request that you, if you want additional density and FLI, then do the apartments. But this is a way that we can canalize, I mean, we can channel those funds in a very effective way, and in order to do that, you're a man you're a businessman. You know that you need the funds to do it. It is not that you are going to come up with the $31 million tomorrow. You see? It's just try to accelerate it. That's
I'm willing to try and make a deal, but the expectations have to be realistic. We don't have a large amount of flexibility. We have some flexibility that I'd say, my board doesn't have any flexibility. I will go back to the board and try my best, but I can tell you that at this point, we're looking at alternate solutions, and we need to know where we're going to, what we're going to do, and where we're going to go. I want to do this project. It's going to be great for Little Haiti. The community is going to get $31 million. I'd rather give it to the $31 million to the community than spend it on other land. They've worked with me for months now to try and get this done, and they're expecting that money for the community, and I just don't want to leave the community behind. Please help me get this done.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
part of the issue that everyone is having, and you got to remember where we are. So the first thing we have to decide is this SAP, I mean, is it appropriate for the neighborhood? And then if there is a question to its appropriateness, if there is any mitigation that this project can have on the effects that it's going to have on the neighborhood. And so that's kind of where the money starts to come into play. So we know that $31 million today is worth more than $31 million tomorrow. So 20 years from now, if you gave me $31 million, if you made a promise for me today, that's not the same dollar as if you gave me the $31 million today. I hope I was clear on that. I think you understand what I'm saying. So that's why it was important. I mean, to have $6 million up front is good, because it allows the community to realize much of that money today. To have the next $6 million 10 years from now, and then the next $6 million 3 years from now, you know, eventually you're not buying the same basket of goods with that same $31 million. You know, before I could buy, you could buy 3 bricks for $1 trying to build a home. Now you can buy 1 brick for $1. I mean, so you build less homes. And so that's part of what the issue is. And that's what the CPI gives us the ability to say, hey, you promised us $31 million that we can do these sorts of things with, and we want to make sure that we're able to buy the same basket of goods. I think that that's perfectly reasonable. I personally do. I don't think that we're asking you to do much more. Now, the Bob's and Gill Scholarship Fund, I didn't say you give the money to me. You can create it yourselves, but just let these people and the people who attend Florida Memorial University to apply for it. I just think that that's just a good thing to do. But you know, the $10.81, all these things, and the $10.81 per square foot, and the additional meetings, I think are all imperative. You know, will you walk away because you get a deferral? I don't think you will. But I'm not here to. That's not what I'm not here to test you. I don't want to pull that card on you. It would be entertaining. It would be entertaining. It will make good, we call it press blogs. It's like, you know, you have blogs, they're usually online. Press blogs are like newspapers, they print them. You can read them in the actual paper. But at the same time, you know, that's not what this is about. What this is about is trying to negotiate something that could be acceptable to this commission and also to the neighborhood, right? Me personally, I don't like a lot of tall buildings. That's me personally. Me, right? And so, but I still have a responsibility here of hearing all of these different things, seeing what makes sense for the neighborhoods, seeing how the community feels about it, what they think is the best thing for this or that. But I still end up having a vote, you know? But, so I have that responsibility. So what I'm saying to you is this. The way that I spelled Magic City in the past was CONTINUANCE, continuance. That's how I spell Magic City, because that's what we've always done. But I think that time yields you an opportunity to continue a dialogue. I would hate to see you dig your heels into the ground on something that is not going to have a meaningful effect on you 10 years from now. 10 years from now, you should be doing very well. 15 years from now, you should be doing very well. And if you're not making any contribution because you're not building what you thought you could build. I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. So I expect you to do well. I want you to do well. But I also want you to not put yourself in a position where you're saying it's this or the highway. So what I'm willing to do is I'm willing to approve on a first reading, but specifically I want you to address these certain issues, because by second reading we want to have true meaningful discussion, or we want to be able to say we can include some of these things that have been discussed, and you'll have enough time to talk with your investors and your partners, et cetera, to see what makes sense. Because, and that gives you your ability to say, okay, Motorsports or whoever it is that there's going to be leasing or buying from you, that we're moving forward in this process. But I want you to really understand that what we're discussing are mitigation effects on the neighborhood. And so in order for a project like this to be successful, they have to present mitigating factors to the issues and the harms that it causes on neighborhoods. I agree. I mean, I'm the one that, remember, said, hey, we need more investment in these neighborhoods, we need more businesses, we need more this, we need more all of that. I agree with you there. Your site is a little different because it goes so deep into your property. It's not like if you were just abutting 62nd Street or 2nd Avenue. You know, it's a different monster, if you will. So I just really want you to understand that by even getting through first reading, it's not implying that you have any right or guarantee, or there's a possibility that this is going to be approved by this body just because you went through on first reading. Because I want you to really understand the seriousness that we have when it talks about creating these benefits for an area like this. Because frankly, we have residents that are in the Palm Grove, that are in the Morningside, that are in all these neighborhoods that will say, deny it. Let them build whatever it is they're going to build, and we'll take that. But I also understand that the effects of that as well, they have no concern necessarily with what has traditionally happened just west of those train tracks, and for the neighborhood that is Little Haiti, and the ills and the sufferers that they have. And so, you know, I hear them as well, but I'm trying to be considerate of the path that it's going to take for Little Haiti to have standard housing for all people, and for people to live in conditions that we can all feel proud of in Little Haiti and actually own it. You know, and that's where your leg up is with me, is there. But before we get into a possible motion there, I want to make another motion, because I think we have some house cleaning that we have to do. So if the members of the commission would indulge me here. There was a request of an intervener status that was put on the record by the Family Action Network movement. The record has been supplanted from that organization, as well as the applicant. I want to recognize that they have and adopt whatever they've submitted, that we accept what they've submitted. But then also, I would like to move that Family Action Network movement be denied the intervener status because I don't believe that they've met the burden that they requested when at our last hearing they asked for the intervener status. That's my motion.
Commissioner, Chair and Commissioner Hardeman, with respect to that, I would also like to submit to the clerk for the record our opposition to their paper, their position, that was sent to you all Tuesday morning, both electronically and by hand delivery, but this is just for submission to the purpose of the record, as the reasons for which they have no basis for being granted intervener status.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second? There's a second. I had received word from those seeking intervener status that they were not going to request it at this meeting, but rather that they were, if it were to get to second reading, they were going to make their full case for intervener status. That at that time, at the last meeting, it was an incomplete request, was my understanding from them. That's all I know or have to disclose of that. Did you want to address that point?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The case is that at the last meeting on February 28th, the chairman did give leave for Family Action Network to provide more information and to actually make a presentation of that case to the commission. We look forward to discussing the applicant's opposition to our motion, but unfortunately, Ms. Jagannath is out of the country. She's the attorney of record for FAM on this motion. She's out of the country for a long planned work trip. On the 28th, as I said before, there was a leave to add the information. On March 7th, Ms. Jagannath and FAM submitted written intervener status requests. On March 14th, Ms. Jagannath and FAM were here. This matter was continued to today, which Ms. Jagannath was not able to make it. But previously to that, last Thursday on March 21st, Ms. Jagannath did email the city attorney and the planning director, I believe, indicating that she would be out of the country and that she would like to reserve the right to raise her intervener status request at the next hearing on this application, and to also have the right to amend or supplement the request with additional exhibits before the next hearing. We did seek indication from the city attorney's office in that regard, and their response to us was that Miami 21 is silent as to when the intervener status would be requested, and that is why Ms. Jagannath asked to reserve the right to bring it up at second hearing or the next hearing on this item, depending on how the commission would vote.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond.
I just wanted to get some advice from our city attorney first on that issue.
Mr. Chair, may I put some facts into the record prior to the response?
Yes.
So that the city attorney has the full picture. So on March 7th, dated March 7th, there was a supplemental filing by FANMA, which we were not served and did not receive. We ultimately obtained a copy of it, and we filed our further response 2 days ago to the city, and you've also received it as well.
A filing with regard to intervener status?
Yes, and their filing, and this is the key thing, Mr. Chair, provided all of the details and the factual basis on which their case rests. It included essentially two things. One, they identified an individual who lives approximately a third of a mile from the property, and they also detailed a list of some expenses that they purportedly apportioned to their efforts in regard to this. Those facts were filed by them, the city, 2 weeks ago or so. You've had them, it's before you. You have all the facts that you need in order to make a determination on this.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. I have not studied that, but maybe you can help guide, not only to process, but advice, because I don't know whether they've earned intervener status or not, but I want to make sure that whatever decision we make is is a strong decision that we can hold, that'll hold up.
Right, so Ms. Jagannath did reach out and advise that she was not going to be available. When I saw counsel here, I thought he was potentially going to act in her stead. If he is not ready to do that, then I would encourage that we just deal with this when she comes and make the motion at that time, so that, I mean, normally when you grant intervenor status, you're here to ask questions of staff, you know, participate. She's not here, that's not happening. We might as well just wait for the same decision when she's available
She's
next
just the
time.
attorney.
Just,
She's not the witness.
but Mr. Kasdan says that they filed a complete application for intervenor status. Is that correct?
Well, they filed, what they did is supplement based on what was discussed the last time, which was requested of her. Remember that she came, she gave information, but it wasn't complete at that time, and she asked for leave to supplement the rest.
No, I don't remember.
They did supplement it.
I don't remember.
Time, please. Let me recognize Commissioner Hardeman first.
Thank you. I don't remember necessarily anyone asking for leave. What I remember is this. I remember from the very beginning of this issue that FOM made it very plain that they were going to ask for intervenor status. FOM, during the first time that this was being heard, was looking to see when it was best to have that intervenor status being considered. At some point, and I believe it may have been the second meeting that this was being heard, that FOM decided that the attorney for FOM and FOM took to the lectern and were presenting facts to this body that we should consider in order to grant them intervenor status. The problem with their presentation was that it was full of hearsay. It was, there were statements that the witness was saying that were not statements that she could properly attest to, because it was hearsay upon hearsay. There were issues with us finding the facts necessary in order to come up with a decision that supported her position. And so from what I remember of that meeting was that they failed horribly at presenting a case for intervenor status.
They what?
They failed horribly at presenting a case for intervenor status. And I think anyone who was here saw that. Now, moreover, if you remember correctly, Marlene Bastien was asked to provide, at that time when she was standing before the lectern, the accounting of how much money was expended towards having these meetings, et cetera, that would cause them to have some special injury that was above and beyond what other organizations or other entities would have had that would give her that intervenor status. And if you remember, she described on the record that, you know, her accountant was not available, it was late in the evening, et cetera. And when it was time to bring additional facts after we had somewhat of a little break, her attorney of record did not take to the stand further to guide her and her witness statements, which to me is very telling, because attorneys, the way that I see it, attorneys have responsibility of not putting on false statements, right? And so you got to be very careful as an attorney if you're going to call a witness that you know may potentially bring about false statements. And so my point in that is that meeting ended rather abruptly. We didn't have an opportunity to really address, to have that final motion, because I think I said on the, I believe I said on the record very clearly that I don't believe that they met the intervenor status at that time. And so I don't think that anything has changed from the last time that we've heard. And the fact that her attorney is on vacation or not, I understand that our city attorney wants to play kind. She wants to not have any objectionable issues that may come up, but the fact of the matter is that the facts were placed on the table for us to consider. We have considered it, and I don't believe that they've met their burden for establishing intervener status in this case.
Just a moment.
Mr. Chair?
Just
Yes,
one moment, please.
I just
Commissioner
want to
Reyes.
add that, as I remember, what Commissioner Henneman was saying, as a matter of fact, you gave additional time for the attorney to find names and how people were, how they spent money for those people that were affected. And they asked for additional time. And when additional time was given, and they couldn't mention, they didn't recall anybody. And when they came back, they just didn't have anybody on that they could, or the amount. But additional time was
Understood.
granted by you.
This is just my recommendation because our recollection of that moment is different, but it doesn't matter. It's in the minutes. What happened, happened. My recollection was that they didn't have all the information they needed, and I asked for a motion to either approve or deny the intervener status in the moment, but no motion came. And at that point I said, you will gather your further financial information or whatever, and then you'll basically reapply. But nobody here tonight is asking for the intervener status. My simple recommendation, if it's going to be a hard no by the votes, it'll be a hard no on that second reading as well, just out of an abundance of caution. And I don't think it's the attorney being kind, it's making sure we're protected from a liability perspective of making a decision without them here asking for intervener status in this moment. That's just my recommendation. So I would tend to err on the side of caution with the city attorney's advice.
So,
Mr. Chair.
I want to say one more thing before you speak. This is an application from someone. This is an application, and granting intervener status gives an organization or a person the opportunity to be officially a part of this whole application process. So the same way you had earlier an appellant and an appellee, it gives them that sort of capability. And we have to remember that what you allowed them to do when they were seeking the intervener status at the last hearing was call a witness. They cross-examined the witness. The witness had an opportunity to put facts on the table that we as fact finders have an opportunity to weigh. And from weighing all of what was presented, we have an opportunity to make a decision about something. Now, no one who requests intervener status, just because you request it doesn't give you the rights that an intervener has. And so even we can make we can say, oh, well, we'll decide at a later time. That can be done. Of course we can do that. But it doesn't guarantee anyone any status at all. So I want to be very plain about this, that what we're talking about here is a matter of rights and an ask from someone who understood that these issues were going to be presented, who understood that they needed to make a request for intervener status, that should understand, because of the seriousness of intervener status, that at any time within the process that they can be called for cross-examination, to present witnesses, they have to make a case. And that's why intervener status is something that we've always taken very seriously here on the Miami City Commission. And it is not something that should be taken lightly. And so I would argue that holding open the question of intervener status, where facts have already been presented on the record, where they've already called witnesses, where the witnesses have already been cross-examined, where we've determined that there was significant hearsay, where we've determined that essentially nothing was being produced that substantiated the claim for intervener status, that we've had a hearing. And now it's just a matter of saying, okay, we're either going to grant this or we're not. And so where I am is at the position of denying it because I don't believe that they met their burden. Furthermore, even if we did give them additional time, I still don't think they're going to meet their burden.
I understand, and you may very well be right. My only concern is that the exact party that you wish to not have a foothold in the conversation will gain one by saying their rights have been denied.
Mr. Chair, I would like to address
And
that,
I may
if
be very wrong in that. You know process and law much better than I am. Just trying to be careful.
Well, may I address that?
I'm sorry, but Mr. Kasdan, really quick, so Commissioner Hardeman is correct that right now, there is no intervener status that has been granted.
Correct.
Actually, at the last hearing, it failed for lack of a motion. There was no motion to grant. There wasn't a second. There wasn't a. So
Motion,
at this point, no one has intervener status. All I'm saying is that if they are going to request it in the future, at that time, you can not grant it. But right now, there is no intervener status for the record. It has not been granted, so.
So would you opine that there's no active request in the moment either?
I mean,
He's asking now.
if,
I
they need to make a decision if you are going to take the place of Ms. Jagana and ask for it, and then there is going to be a motion that can deal with it today. If you're not, at this time, there is no pending motion for intervener status if you're not taking the position that you're asking for it.
Mr. Chair,
you. Just a moment. Mr. Kasdan.
There are, as Commissioner Hardeman said, there are facts, and these facts have to be put on the table, and Commissioner Hardeman's motion is completely in order. First of all, the intervener status can be granted if someone or an organization has a difference in impact,
Yes.
or degree. And the facts that they have presented on that are that they are one of dozens of organizations that are active in Little Haiti, not differentiating from any other organization. In fact,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Excuse me. In fact, they are not even registered with the Net Office in Little Haiti, which is the office for all neighborhood organizations to be registered with. Number two, the person who they have offered as an individual lives at least 1/3 of a mile away from the site. They, in their statement, and understand this, they have filed on March 7th, or dated March 7th, with the city. You all received it. May I finish, Mr. Chair?
Well, you're actually making the case on the substance of the intervener status.
No, but
I just want to make sure that we want to go down that road.
Well, because it's before...
And by you participating, you will also be making your case for intervener status.
Trying not to participate is my point,
Mr. Chair, it's
Chair.
before you. They filed a motion for intervention with a statement of facts.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry. That's before you. So their whole case, the fact that Ms. Jagano, she is not the plaintiff, she's not the intervener, one seeking intervention status, it's the organization whose chairman is here. An attorney representing that organization is here.
That's what I'm trying to say.
As Commissioner
Let him finish, please.
As Commissioner Hardeman would say, if I couldn't be here one evening, it doesn't mean that someone else in my law firm couldn't be presenting. So all of their facts are before you. They've been filed with you. This matter could be properly disposed of this evening. You have every right. And I would want to say one other thing in addition. If you look at the law with regard to intervention status, actually one of the most relevant cases is the recent appellate court decision, circuit court appellate decision involving the Coconut Grove Playhouse, in which intervener status was granted to people who lived near Coconut Grove Playhouse, had an interest in the Coconut Grove Playhouse, and the circuit court the appellate court said no, they don't have a sufficient differentiated and identifiable interest. That was the 2018 case in this city. So not only are the facts before you, but the facts don't come close to meeting the standard required for intervention.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
please.
Thank you. So what I want to make abundantly clear, Commissioner, is that I am not here in Ms. Jagana's stead to argue for intervener status. My only role here right now is to communicate to the chair and the commissioner via to second basically an email that Ms. Jagannath sent to the city attorney and to the planning director that what Commissioner Hardeman mentioned earlier about bringing witnesses and, getting past that hearsay problem is what Ms. Jagannath would want to do at the next hearing, as it was in your recollection of the event, which is on the February 28th commission meeting, which is similar to ours, that there was going to be an opportunity to do that, and unfortunately, there was not an opportunity to do that before the meeting was over. So the only reason why I'm here today is to communicate that from Ms. Jagannath.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll let him finish.
Yes, and that is really it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mr. Chair, they filed this request. This is labeled a motion for intervenor status. It is in your legislative package. You've had it in the city for over 2 weeks. All the facts that they purportedly rely on are contained in here. And so you do have to dispose of this motion, I believe, because they have an official motion pending before you.
All right. We've heard from both sides. We've heard from our city attorney. There's a motion and a second on the floor, Commissioner. Is there any further discussion on the dais?
Can I say something?
Unless you are seeking status here. Okay, then I don't think so. We're simply dealing with the issue of intervenor status at this point. Is there any further discussion on the dais about this motion or this item?
What's the title of that motion that you have before you? That's included within our package?
Intervenor status request for Magic City Innovation District Special Area Plan and companion comprehensive plan and amendment applications with statement of facts, legal standard, and the legal argument claiming that they have status individually and on behalf of FANMA to intervene. That's in your record.
That's what I remember. So I think I made my motion.
Okay. His motion is to deny intervenor status at this point.
Yes.
The position is that it's a complete record and that the commission at this time can vote on that. That is what's being proposed.
Thank you. All in favor of the item say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll be marked as a no, just following, I'm just a no. Back to the next motion.
Right, so, Madam City Attorney, can you read PZ 1, 2, and 3 into the record, please?
An ordinance of the Miami City Commission with attachments amending ordinance number 10544 as amended the future land use map of the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan pursuant to the expedited state review process as established in section 163-3184 Florida statutes by changing the future land use designation from light industrial to general commercial of the acreage described herein for real properties located at 240, 270, 352, 372, 382, 301, 320, 250, 262, 365, 298, 300, 310, 340, 371, 353, and 288 Northeast 61st Street, 401, 300, and 415 Northeast 62th Street, 334, 350, and 370 Northeast 60th Street, 6300, 6380, 6301, 6350, 5972, 5974, and 5952 Northeast 4th Avenue, Miami, Florida, and by changing the future land use designation from medium density restricted commercial to general commercial of the acreage described herein for a portion of the real property at 6001 Northeast 2nd Avenue, Miami, Florida, as more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached and incorporated, making findings containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date. PZ2, an ordinance of the Miami City Commission with attachments pursuant to Article 3 and 7 of the ordinance number 13114, the zoning ordinance of the City of Miami, Florida, as amended, rezoning certain parcels for the development of approximately 17.75 acres for Magic City Special Area Plan, an assemblage of parcels located at approximately 6001 and 6041 Northeast Second Avenue, 5952, 5972, 5974, 6300, 6301, 6350, and 6380 Northeast Fourth Avenue, 6200 and 6210 Northeast Fourth Court, 270, 296, 334, 350, and 370 Northeast 60th Street, 228, 240, 250, 262, 270, 288, 298, 300, 301, 310, 320, 340, 352, 353, 365, 371, 372, and 382 Northeast 61st Street, and 200, 300, 401, and 415 Northeast 62nd Street, Miami, Florida, is more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached and incorporated. The SAP consists of a phased project which includes a maximum of approximately 2,630 residential dwelling units and 8,164,140 square feet of total development floor lot ratio, of which 370,000 square feet of FLR may only be used for parking. The SAP shall contain a minimum of 165,528 square feet of public open space. The SAP will modify the underlying transit zone regulations that are applicable to the subject parcels, and where regulation is not specifically modified by the SAP, the regulations and the restrictions of the Miami 21 Code will apply. Further, by changing the zoning classifications of a portion of the above referenced properties from D1 Workplace Zone and T50 Urban Core Transit Zone open to MCID Magic City Innovation District Urban Core Zone and MCID2 Magic City Innovation District Urban Core Transit pursuant to the regulating plan and concept book attached herein provided, and the MCID1 Magic City Innovation District Urban Core Transit shall have equivalent standards and criteria and be regulated the same as the T6120 Urban Core Transit Zone Open, except as otherwise modified by the SAP, and that the MCID2 Magic City Innovation District Urban Core Transit shall have equivalent standards and criteria and be regulated the same as T6240 Urban Transit Zone Open, except as otherwise modified by the SAP, making findings of fact and stating conclusions of law, providing for binding effect, containing a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. And PZ3, an ordinance of the Miami City Commission with attachments approving development agreement in the form acceptable to the city attorney pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes between MCD Miami LLC, Magic City Properties 1, LLC, Magic City Properties 2, Magic City Properties 3, Magic City Properties 4, Magic City Properties 5, Magic City Properties 6, Magic City Properties 7, Magic City Properties 8, Magic City Property 9, Magic City Properties 10, Magic City Properties 11, Magic City Properties 14, Magic City Properties 15, Magic City Properties 16, Magic City Properties 17, Magic City Properties 18, Magic City Properties 19, Magic City Properties 20, Magic City Properties 21, Magic City Properties 22, Magic City Properties 23, Magic City Properties 24, Magic City Properties 25, Dragon Global, Miami Real Estate Investments, Lemon City Group, and Imperial Capital Group, and the City of Miami relating to rezoning of certain parcels for the development of 17.75 acres for the Magic City Innovation District Special Area Plan comprised of assemblage of parcels located at approximately 6001, 6040 Northeast 2nd Avenue, 5952, 5972, 5974, 6300, 6301, 6350, and 6380 Northeast 4th Avenue, 6200 and 6210 Northeast 4th Court, 270, 296, 334, 350, and 370 Northeast 60th Street, 228, 240, 250, 262, 270, 288, 298, 300, 301, 310, 320, 340, 352, 353, 365, 371, 372, and 382 Northeast 61st Street, and 200, 300, 401, and 415 Northeast 62nd Street, Miami, Florida, is more particularly described in Exhibit A attached and incorporated for the purpose of redevelopment of such land for mixed uses, authorizing the following uses, including but not limited to residential, commercial, lodging, civic, educational, and civil support, parking garage, and any other uses authorized by the Magic City SAP and permitted by the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan, future land use map designation, and ordinance number 13114, the zoning ordinance of the City of Miami, Florida, as amended, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the development agreement in a form acceptable to the city attorney for said purpose, containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Is there a motion, please?
So I'd like to say that I want to be very clear on this motion. You're probably not going to like it. I don't expect to hear any discussion back and forth regarding what I'm about to say. It is what it is. This is how we're going to move forward. So as discussed earlier on the record, there are issues that I think that one thing I forgot to discuss, I became aware of a request by even the concerned leaders of Little Haiti. They probably, I think they communicated a request to you all. I had an opportunity to review it summarily, and it was of my opinion that that is something that you all should meet with them about because you all came to terms about things. But even this is an opportunity for you all, like the timing will give you an opportunity to further discuss issues that they believe can make the deal a better deal, not necessarily cost you more money. I'm not sure, exactly what all the details are, but that's for you all to discuss. And so I want between first and second reading for you to have some serious dialogue about these sort of issues, including but not limited to having 2 town hall type-ish meetings that can be hosted at Notre Dame de Haiti by our dear Father Reggie or any of his designees that can start at 5:00 p.m. with a 4-hour max. So each one of them have a 4-hour max. You're not leaving past 9:00 p.m. That you discuss between first and second reading. Creation of a true, you can call it what you like, Magic City Scholarship Fund, Bob's and Gildo Scholarship Fund, however you want to be able to help spend that. Serious discussions about that. Serious discussions, I'm assuming you're going to meet with me at some point regarding, or the city regarding the CPI and the $10.81 per square foot per square foot for the contribution. The relationship with the post-secondary institution, I want a hard agreement on a historically black college university. You can choose the subsequent if it doesn't work out. I'm assuming that they're going to be excited about it, and it will. But that doesn't absolve you from choosing to also work with someone else. I just want the relationship to be meaningful because I think that there's some wins that could happen there. And I started with the discussion with concerned leaders of Little Haiti. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in accordance with what I just stated, that we approve the PZ 1, 2, and 3 on first reading, reserving the fact that we're still discussing this whole mitigation effects, how this sort of development can have negative effects and how those negative effects are going to be mitigated because it is quite different from what the surrounding neighborhood entails. And then I will want to hear this back for second reading at a like hearing in 90 days.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of the maker of the motion for clarification? Yes. So that your motion, your direction includes and what the planning director said is subsumed within your motion?
That is correct. I had a point the moment you said that, it came to my mind. I don't want to lose this point before we close this hearing. Found it. So the request that concerned leaders of Little Haiti had, what I would like to see from the concerned leaders of Little Haiti is for you to make a formal request in writing to the organization, Magic City to come up with a formal reply so that we all understand exactly what it was that was being requested. I'm not saying, I just want to be able to see it, touch it, feel it, and know what happened, and everyone else to understand what happened as well. But that's the entirety of my motion.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? been seconded by Commissioner Gort. Commissioner, I'll certainly support your motion on first reading, and if those discussions in town halls also encompass discussions of workforce and true affordability on site, I would also be very supportive of hearing the results of those conversations as well. Is there any further discussion on the dais?
No, the only thing that I want to say is that I really hope that we have a serious conversation about the conditions that were placed by Commissioner Hardeman, and so we can accelerate them. And my position is that we have to accelerate the payment. You see, that be it with an increase in the payment for per square foot, or placing a time limit on it. Okay, sure.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Chairman?
Sorry,
Chairman?
just quickly, Chair, just so 90 days, that'll be June 27th. June 27th, Commissioner Hardeman, second reading.
Yes. Madam City Attorney?
If I may, as everybody is here listening,
okay,
can I
before
read
we
a
go,
script?
just before you read that script, it's important that I say that this is the last commission meeting at which I'll have the support and advice of my policy advisor, Leah Weston. She's been with me from the very beginning, and she's moving on. She's made my office better, she's made me better, and she's made Miami better. I want to thank her for her public service and wish her all the best in the future. Please, go ahead, Madam City Attorney.
Leah! Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, pursuant to the provisions of 286.0118 Florida statutes, I'm requesting that at the City Commission meeting of April 11, 2019, an attorney-client session closed to the public be held for purposes of discussing the pending litigation in the matter of 1000 Brickell Limited, formerly known as 1000 Inc., the Kai Properties Limited, and City of Miami, case number 14-11755CA23, pending in the Circuit Court of the 11th Judicial Circuit in and for Miami-Dade, to which the city is presently a party. The subject of the meeting will be confined to settlement negotiations or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures. This private meeting will begin at approximately 10 a.m. or soon thereafter as commissioners' schedules permit, and conclude approximately 1 hour later. The session will be attended by members of the City Commission, which include Chairman Ken Russell, Vice Chairman Wilfredo Gore, Commissioners Joe Carollo, Manolo Reyes, and Kian Hardeman, City Manager Emilio Gonzalez, City Attorney Victoria Mendez, Deputy City Attorneys John Greco and Barnaby Min, Division Chief for General Jurisdiction Christopher Green, and Deputy
Sorry,
City
ladies and
Attorneys
gentlemen, can we
John
please keep it
Greco
down in the chambers?
and Deputy City Attorneys John Greco and Barnaby Min. A certified court reporter will be present to ensure the session is fully transcribed, and the transcript will be made public at the conclusion of the litigation. At the conclusion of the attorney-client session, the regular commission meeting will be reopened, and the person chairing the commission meeting will announce the termination of the attorney-client session. Thank you.
And Chair, briefly, DI1 and D31, Commissioner Correa's items will be
Everything
deferred to April 11th. April 11th.
They won't be to the next like meeting?
No, he requested April
he did
11th.
request.
Yes. Since there's really no opposition to it, they'll just be deferred to April
Absolutely.
11th.
That's fine. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.